Joining us from Delos Delta is Brook Dixon. Welcome back to TheInformer, mate.
Thanks, George. Always good to be with you.
I want to run something past you because last time we had a chat, you really energised my space and you reminded me that we need to talk more openly about some of these crazy conspiracies that are going on out there. You're in the midst of the information business. You're doing some tremendous things. In fact, you've got a great bit of imagery on your right shoulder there. It's bits of shard from a light bulb that have shattered. There's the image, correct? It's a great image, I love it. Explain to me what it represents, because I think it's fantastic.
Oh, well, look, George, we're in the game of information ideas and knowledge and innovation. So for us, of course, we want as many light bulb moments as we can, from ourselves, with our clients, with our collaborators, with our partners. But more than that, to make it more exciting, to make it more expressive, to make it more interesting, the whole idea that the ideas are so powerful that we're just exploding light bulbs and creating new paradigms and breaking down old ways of thinking and creating new ways of thinking moving forward, George. So it's a nice little reminder to us to always be having those fantastic light bulb moments, but always be through breaking down, building up bigger and stronger.
Yeah, well, look, while you're saying that, I love it. I think it's the sort of imagery that we need much, much more of. And I always get energised by talking to you about so many of these new ideas out there. But why is it do we have so many people who are still clutching, at bits of conspiracy and nonsense?
Absolutely, George. Look, it is crazy. Really, Delos Delta and the companies and the organisations and the governments that we work for like to base our policies, our actions on evidence and science, and the best evidence and science that we can get our hands on. And we never really understand why these fringe theories, these conspiracies, these ideas that are based on misinformation and scant evidence at best really gain such currency. Look, the good thing is, George, is that it really is only a small proportion of our population who buy into these conspiracy theories, although we do seem to think that they're bigger than what they are because they do get so much attention on media and social media and so forth. So I think there's a range of ways that we can start to get more sense into the national dialogue, both through how the media addresses these issues, but of course through directly moving to discourage misinformation on social media. But George, I wish I had all the answers on this front, but it is quite scary and frightening and stuff that I really don't like to see.
Now, Brook, you have got a lot of answers, and one I want you to fire up for is this thing called digital democracy. I thought I'd go to Delos Delta. I thought I'd go to the guy who knows what's happening out there. I want you to explain to me. I've been seeing it crop up in a lot of literature. Can you give me a sense of what you understand is digital democracy?
Yeah, thanks, George. Look, it's a nice little catchphrase, a little tagline for a whole host of reforms and modernisations to our democratic processes and institutions, mainly revolving around digital technology. But essentially, it's about democracy for the digital age. George, a lot of our democratic processes and institutions were formed hundreds of years ago and are based on centuries before that of practice and ways of doing things. And many of our democratic processes haven't been brought into the digital age. So what we would like to see at Delos Delta, and a lot of our clients are proving this and moving it forward, is better use of digital technology to actually improve democratic processes and decision making. For example, George, voting in Seoul, in Barcelona, they have 40,000 people who've signed up to it voluntarily, and they push out issues for people to vote on. The local council does. They push out issues for people to provide their views on. They even ask their city to come up with ideas that the council then considers and votes on. And many of those ideas are actually funded by the local government because they're such good ideas. The whole idea is using digital technology to broaden and deepen the conversation with the community, to empower them and to get them to be more part of the democratic processes.
It seems to me that they're using one of those maligned things that we hear about, push polling, but it seems like they've taken it in a particular way and used it with real effect. We've heard that push polling is used by a lot of political parties for their own benefit, but you see it here as governments using it to direct more positive thinking through the community.
Absolutely. So the idea of it really, George, is that when governments sit down to make decisions about what policies they support, where funds will go, what reforms are important, they actually have a closer, more direct voice from the community. So really, George, I mean, at the moment in Australia, democracy really boils down to us heading out to vote once every 3 or 4 years. One paper vote every 4 years is what I say in my TEDx talk, does not make a modern democracy. And I know as much as I like to say, look, we all love our democracy sausage, but why don't we get a little bit more of that democracy sausage and eat it a bit more regularly? I think that's a good thing.
No, I think it is a good thing, and especially as we've seen, these are extraordinary times, very difficult times, and they're challenging us on so many different levels. Who would have imagined? We saw some figures emerge from the, I think it's Access Economics, telling us that we've just experienced the biggest fall in inflation. So we've actually seen deflation, the greatest bout of deflation in 72 years. So these are seriously difficult times, challenging everybody at every level. So why not ask more questions? Why not reach out and ask more of our not only constituents, but more of the people who are holding the reins of power and our stakeholders? I think it's really, really important. And tell me, it's also, it comes at a time when there is so much disruption and we're seeing so many other threats to our digital space. We're being told constantly we've got to be aware, we've got to improve our firewalls, and we've got to be aware that when someone sends you something, unless you believe that to be a verifiable source that you know well and are comfortable about, you don't go click and let that link or that malware come into your digital system.
Yeah, that's right, George. So look, I mean, a lot of people worry about the advent of digital democracy and say, oh, look, I'll just let our democracy be hacked. But I say back to them, our democracy is being hacked. It's being hacked because it's out of date. It's being hacked because it comes from an analog world and we're trying to make it work in a digital world. And we've seen what happened with Cambridge Analytica and how they essentially hacked democracies and election processes around the world through misinformation and targeted campaigns on social media to sway people's votes through misinformation. So if we don't step forward and lean into modernising our democracies with digital technology will play its part, and in a negative way, George. So I say that you've got to be on the front foot here, and you've got to be actively engaging with digital technology and not putting your head in the sand and going, oh, let's just stay with the old way of doing things.
So what would you like to see our young men and women, our business leaders doing today to go to the next step, to make themselves more, as they say, more capable in this digital democracy?
Absolutely. So look, George, we're seeing it particularly with local governments at the moment, like state governments across Australia, all changed their laws to allow our councils to meet in virtual formats through the COVID crisis.
Yep.
Similarly, with parliaments across the world, they put in place measures to allow greater use of technology so that they can continue their oversight function in what are unprecedented times. Really, black mark against our federal government, who really put off their democratic processes and the meeting of Parliament, even though we've proven through the manifestation of the National Cabinet that we can hold serious decision-making forums through video conference over the last few months. So there's a whole range of good things happening at the local government level and parliaments around the world, but our federal Parliament really, I don't think, have done anywhere near enough to ensure that parliamentary oversight and accountability and decision-making can continue in a functioning way using digital technology.
Brook Dixon, thank you very much for joining us on The Informer.
Always a pleasure, George. Have a nice day.